Alright, well, some of you probably getting tired of me uploading the same old stuff over and over again, ready for some new content. But I want to touch base on some things I learned and some stuff that I got done today, which wasn't a whole lot. But start first with what I did. I did finish testing out this fuel line, and this new line I made holds pressure by itself. So that's not where my leak was. My guess is my leak is down where the hard line joins with this via an 8AN union, which is just AN on both sides, male. Because there's a B-nut on the, I think it's called a B-nut, on the hard line, and then obviously it's a straight fitting like this one, except just straight on the other end of this. Now I'm gonna get in the car and show it. You can take a guess at what it looks like. Probably showed it in another video. Anyways, this doesn't leak. So I'm probably gonna clean my connections down underneath, reattach, retest the whole thing, and we'll call this done. On to the other thing I learned. Rudder made a very good idea comment of something I didn't think about. Sadly, it won't work, and I'll explain why in a sec, but he mentioned swapping, rotating these. Essentially, these are fuel bowls. A traditional fuel bowl on carburetors front and back, and you can swap them, they're identical. Well, these appear to be identical as well. I looked at the bolt pattern and they seem to be able to swap. I didn't pull it off because I don't know if this side has a regulator, and I'm not sure if this connects with anything inside, and that might be part of the reason why it can't, but I contacted Holley and they said you cannot swap this around. And first off, the main reason you can't is this little crossover hose. Now, notice it's right up against this. Well, on the front, you have the ECU. There's literally no way this piece here is molded onto the bowl. This would contact this casting. So you can't rotate it. That was a sad, unfortunate thing. Which meant if I was gonna run NA with a filter like how I had it, this is the return on this regulator. It's built in, and then the feed is this plug, which would mean I would have to change this to like a 45-degree fitting, cross it over to this side, and then the return, I would have to come out of this, feed it probably up to the firewall, come back, run it along this top. I'd probably zip tie it or something off of these holes and run it across and then around, and I'd put that fitting on this side instead. So on the other thing I did today was I made the return line. It's clamped down there, which I think I had this ran the other day when I made a video, but the return here feeds back the fuel tank down there. And I made this. This is the other return. It comes off of the actual EFI. And I like the way this turned out. I had to actually make this twice because the first time I made it, it was like exact length, like an exact fit. And well, to be honest, I didn't account for the motor's probably gonna move a little bit when it's running because it's not solid motor mounts. And it might torque. Granted, it rotates clockwise, I believe, which I would think, I guess it would make the block want to torque this way since the rotating assembly torques that way. I don't know. Anyways, this was tight. There wasn't any room for it to stretch either way. Now, there is. Got this nice little hump here. Should work fine. So, on to the other thing I found. So yesterday after I made the video, I had a brainstorm lightning bolt going off in my head event where I thought, they make carb spacers. I'm sure someone's ran into an issue where they needed a spacer here to clear whether it be throttle linkage or some kind of kickdowns or maybe even fuel lines. I was like, I could always make some kind of spacer or stack gaskets depending on how much I need to clear. And then I also thought about base plates, like the filter bases. It's like, granted, mine's a drop one, but I'm sure they have some that are flat. My previous one, for example, was a small little bitty filter, and it was a flat base. It didn't have any drop down or anything. Granted, I sold that with my carburetor, but I looked around at other filter options, and originally I was looking for just another filter that had a flat base, or like a little compact, like the long ones that are kind of oval shaped. And I found one, but they wanted like 75 bucks for it, and it looked good. It was just exactly like the one I have, but it was only a 2-inch tall one, and it had a flat base. And I was just about to hit buy now on it, and I was like, you know what, I wonder if they sell a flat base that I could just swap out my bases and use a 14-inch base that I ordered with my filter and top. Sure enough, they do. They got one on Amazon for 20 bucks. But then after that, I was like, you know, I bet, let me, just for the hell of it, let me search and see if they sell the spacers before I try to make one. They do. Edelbrock makes one that's a 1/2 inch for like 8 bucks. I found I think one made by Spectre, which is the same people that make my filter. And it's a kit of 3 of them. A 1 inch, a 1/2 inch, and a 1/4 inch. And you can stack them, you can combine them. So I ordered it for all of $9.99. I'm gonna get that in. I'm gonna see how it fits with my base. And we're gonna roll with that, because this, I can kick this down to where it's like right there, and it'll be out of the way. This, I'll kick this one up some, so it'll kind of sit like so. That way it has a hump for stretch. And if I have to order the flat base, say those filter spacers that I get don't clear my base, I can still order the flat base, because this face material right here isn't but, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch difference from this nut height right here. I mean, it's a very small difference. And the flat base has a little lip because it's flat, and then it has a vertical piece that actually goes down to this gasket material that is 3/16, 1/4 inch. So if nothing else, that flat base will definitely fix the problem. So that should fix my filter situation. The only other thing I had in mind that I could do is, in my opinion, is kind of ricey and ghetto, whatever you want to call it. Kind of shitty looking in my opinion. But I could always use a normal filter on this and do like the cold air intake type shit where you pipe it down somewhere and put a filter. Or I could go ahead and order my intercooler set up, pipe the intake like it's going to the intercooler, and have that part done for the turbo setup. Granted, I don't know where my exhaust piping is going to lay out, so that idea is kind of, I might end up, if I did it, I would have to probably go back and modify it later when I run the turbo, the hot side of the turbo stuff. But anyways, I could run the intake to intercooler somewhere, and then put a filter on the other side of the intercooler, so it's literally just pulling air through it. But that intercooler would probably slow down airflow as well and add restriction, so forth, along with it would look kind of shitty because I'd have a big ass intercooler with no turbo, and people were gonna look at the car at car show or at cruising and be like, oh, it's turbo, pop the hood, oh, you're just a ricer, where's your wing on the back of this thing? Anyways, that solution, like I said, should be fixed. It'll actually look NA, it'll have a normal NA filter until I get the turbo stuff handled. And the other thing, before I just even Googled or searched or thought of all that, I thought, it's April now, and I've already made this much progress to where I don't have a whole lot left to do to make this thing drivable. Pretty sure between 2-3 months, I can get the turbo stuff done, with money being a possible issue. Because the turbo, like I said, the turbo setup for all that stuff is probably going to cost between $1,000 and $1,500. And their rotisserie was what was going to pay for it, and it's still sitting here. Granted, with all this COVID, Corona shit going on, can't really get rid of it. I understand, Rudder, whenever this shit's over and you want to come pick it up, it's still here for you, buddy. Not in a rush. If it came down to it and I got everything I needed to done on the car where I was literally held up with just money, I'd throw the turbo on a credit card, to be honest. But enough with that. On to electrical a little bit. This connector. This, from the looks of it, it's a Metro Pack, but I looked on like Dell City website and I could not for the life of me find the terminals that the power and ground use, or this connector. And I believe this is an old Delphi connector, and it's now currently like Astro or some kind of brand like that bought it out, I believe, and use it. So it's not quite MetroPack, although it is still, I guess. It's their old stuff, I think. So this terminal on this little 20 gauge wire or whatever is different from the ones I have. Don't know if the ones I have will work in its place. Also, this connector is the main one. I do not have any of these big ass seals. I do not have a terminal with this big ass connector on it. This big ass blade. Let me get it to focus. Called Holley. Luckily they have a wire schematic diagram from the build sheet, and he had part numbers. So I was able to find them online. So I'll be going to order them in a short bit. When I go inside, I think I am gonna end up leaving an inline fuse up here somewhere. I just don't know where I'd put it. I want it to be out of sight and not visible, obviously, because it looks kind of shitty. But I'd rather have the extra fuse protection on it up front at the unit. It's on a breaker in the back, but the breaker is, I think, 30 amp. I don't even know. It might be a 40 or 50 amp, but it's mainly to protect the wiring, not the unit itself. This will be to protect the actual unit. But I had to order these, start terminating, redoing all of this harness. And this is the leftover of the relay that was on the Holley. That was to feed the fuel pump. See, not using any of it. So, spare relay. But I'll order those terminals. When those come in, I can start pinning everything. I could go ahead and start pinning everything else but the power and ground, because I should have the terminals for everything except for that harness. And get rolling on it. I mentioned I ordered my insulation stuff, so whenever that stuff comes in, I'll have to pull my dash back apart and pull that heater and all out, which was a pain in the ass to get in. Not looking forward to that. And this thing came in. Should help with my battery terminal stuff if I need it. Because right now my positive is pretty maxed out on this bolt. These are longer than stock bolts, but right now I just kind of got this boot that's kind of laid in place. It's not really on there too well. If anyone knows of a better way to cover this stud, let me know. So far, these little boots are like the best thing I've come up with to cover them. Because I have 5 things coming off of this. I have these two, which are these breakers. I have these 2 breakers, and then I have this mega fuse. And the ground has 3. The ground is not bad. But anyways, I'll leave it at that. And thanks for watching, guys. Later.